For the part of creating the shoulder armor, I searched some reference to Chinese armor and print a piece of them. When doing the armor, my preferred material was card paper. I paste the printed paper onto the card paper, then cut it into small pieces, and finally make them together to get the whole shoulder armors. Here I start by sculpting with plaster, then use hot glue to create a mold, and finally use air clean to create the final product. Because of the first method cost too much time, so I tried a number of others, then find the best one. One of the problem I find when coloring the body armor is if I only color it once, it still be black when it's dried, so I end up going for a thicker coat. Mostly all part was made by EVA foam board and used a lot of different glues such as hot glue and super glue, and I had tried different material over and over again to achieve a better presentation, and I make many different ways to attract the microbits. Finally, I decided to cut the PVC and put it in. This cost me a lot of time because I don't have the right tools, and finally I cut it using the garden scissors. And there is something unfortunately, which is the overall light of the weapon is not perfect because I didn't use the COB strip.
For the game board, I used AI to generate images for each tile and then combined them in Photoshop, adding transitions between the images to make the map look seamless. I labeled each tile, adjusted the colors, and cleaned up any defects in the AI generated images. My goal was to create smooth transitions so that the entire board felt like one cohesive image. While the transitions between horizontal and vertical tiles worked well, I faced challenges with the diagonal tiles. In addition, I designed and wrote the game's rules. During playtesting, we found that the game ended too quickly, so I adjusted the values to create a better balance. I also used AI generated images and Photoshop to design the deck and the game currency. Unfortunately, I lost the footage of that process. I printed the designs at Officeworks, but the prints came out misaligned, leaving an uneven margin on the cards. For the interactive components of a board, I implemented a volume detecting sensor and a pressure sensor. The pressure required was higher than expected, but everything else worked smoothly. I also made the 4 character figures with clay, and they turned out quite adorable. Unfortunately, some of the thinner parts of the figure broke off after baking.
I'm using tape and plastic wrap to get the overall shape of the armor. I'm cutting out onto the EVA foam a little bit larger due to the width of the EVA foam and allow me to make adjustment later. I haven't designed the armor yet, so I'm cutting out base layers that add detail to it. Here I'm cutting out weapon blueprint printed on paper and glue them together and make sure it can cover up the fiberglass roll that are gonna be put inside the sword for stabilization. Unfortunately, the blueprint is glued slightly off. I caused the cut off sword to be not straight, so I had to recut it. I'm learning the Dremel tool for sanding the EVA foam. And here is cutting out his card and making the chessboard, as well as making the chess pieces for player to use. I'm cutting out the sword crossguard. It's 3 layer because the inside layer would need to cut a hole for the fiberglass to fit through. The layer to make it more stable and robust, and the outside layer for details. Combination of 5mm, 5mm and 2mm EVA foam. For the handle, I'm using a 10mm soft EVA foam, doing a cylinder and cover it up with another 2mm hard EVA foam. The handle is soft to hold onto, but still have the hard texture outside. I added safety precaution on the fiberglass and EVA foam to both ends to prevent it from sticking out, and even if it sticks out, it won't do any serious damage to the player because it is covered. Now I'm adding details to the armors by adding strips behind the armor to hold it in place. This way the armor will not be out of shape. Also added some fur fabric for the armor to make it look more like an animal monster type of armor, fit more towards the game. Doing the same for the chest armor, added some details, furs and EVA strip at the back to hold it in place, and using heat guns to permanently binding it. Added some bear claw elements so it looks like a bear monster kind of armor. For the other shoulder armor, I'm creating a face of a god from our game, using some Dremel tools to add some detail to the face and glue it on top of the other shoulder armor. Using sandpaper and Dremel tool to sand off some of the hot glues and peels from cutting. Now I'm applying multiple primers to the armor and paint the armor. The primer chosen is flexible. It is better than other primer I've used. It prevents cracks from bend and heat, perfect for our situation. Back to the crossguard, I'm using contact cement to glue it together. It is better, it's more sticky than hot glues, but it is also toxic and takes longer to dry. And I'm also using it onto the sword body because all those sections need to be robust and can't be broken when hit. I cut out the bevels on the edge of the sword and use the sanding machine, the Dremel to sand the sword. Heat seal the sword, then apply primer to the sword so it can be colored, and use heat guns to make it dry faster. While waiting for the primer to dry, I'm making the leg piece armor. Same to all the armors, I designed it and made it. Also, I added a spot for putting magnet for all the armor for our game to work. The magnet spot uses fasteners so you can easily open up and put magnet inside. Also added a fastener for the armor so you can easily wear them. Also added stretch fabric inside so everyone can actually fit in. When cutting the sword, I decided to make the sword old and damaged by using fabric cloths with dark color and brush on top of the damaged area of the sword. For coloring the armor, I actually used 2 methods. One is primer first, then color. The other is primer and color together. Primer then color, it achieves better result, but primer with color is faster. Now I'm adding a hole sensor microbit and the battery pack inside the sword by cutting the sword open. I made the whole sensor to stick out on the other side so it can better detect magnet, and also added paint so it doesn't look like it's a sensor. And using plastic to show the microbit LED, so when hit it would display a sound and also display the LED. And for the battery, I'm using fasteners so you can easily take out battery and put in batteries. Using air clay to fill the crack, but air clay is soft so I can't sand it even after it dries, but I can paint on top of it with no problem.